Thank you. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We are South King Emotional Wellness League. My name is Terry Rogers Kemp. I am very happy to be here today to serve the community and have our conversation. Let's talk. Mental health. SKEWL is South King Emotional Wellness League. We are on a mission to destigmatize mental health care and mental health support for especially Black and Brown communities where we tend to not reach out for help with our mental health challenges. We also are on a mission to provide Black and Brown providers for Black and Brown people. Not only do we want to uplift the act of reaching out when you need help, but we are about finding folks who look like us to help us, and then resources, making sure that folks have access to mental health resources, but also at the same time that they're able to afford them. So we are about providing mental health support. Our mental health support comes from licensed mental health care providers and activists. And we have 3 of our panelists today. 2 of them are our mental health, part of our mental health provider team. And one of our panelists is an activist about community well-being and mental health support. And if you all, Ms. Jennifer, Dr. Tanya, and Ms. Silver, if you all can, please introduce yourselves.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Hippolyte. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the community. I've been in private practice for a little over a year, but I've been a counselor for 8 years now. And I work with teens and young adults, and I especially enjoy working with Black and Brown folks in the community. Like Ms. Terry was saying, having a person who can relate to their cultural and ethnic background is important for a lot of clients. So I appreciate being able to provide that for clients. I'm also from the Haitian background, so I also enjoy working with individuals from that background and other ethnic backgrounds to help them navigate their cultural identities. So that's a little bit about me.
So cool. Dr. Jennifer, do you speak French?
I speak Creole.
I can't wait to learn how to speak French, but I digress.
Yeah.
Dr. Tanya, could you please introduce yourself to us?
Hi, I'm Tanya Lassane. I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I work primarily with active duty service member in an intensive outpatient program, and I also own a private practice, Abide Counseling, Coaching, and Consulting Group. I specialize in anxiety and depression, as well as trauma. I enjoy being a part of SKEWL and working with Black and Brown community, connecting them with providers of many different disciplines. So I'm happy to be a part of this panel and welcome the opportunity to speak with you and or meet with you individually.
Thank you, Dr. Tanya. And Silver.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Silver Lee. I am a community well-being advocate in the Seattle-King County area, primarily advocating for anti-gentrification practices as a way to promote community well-being and cultural sustainability in the area. Happy to be here.
I'm grateful for you, Silver. So, South King Emotional Wellness League, we started in 2020. We were Community Mental Health Day. Our very first event was here at Emerald City Community Seventh-day Adventist Church. Our pastor, Eugene Lewis, not only does our pastor, Lewis, come to our meetings about school and mental health, but also provides our church free to us. And I'm grateful to our pastor, Lewis, for not only having the support of our folks. Excuse me just one moment. Thank you. I'm working with our technology people as far as our streaming. Not only does our pastor support our community spiritually, but also he is very supportive of our community in terms of traditional and even non-traditional mental health. Our providers, our Black and brown providers, we welcome more Black and brown providers, licensed mental health therapists, but also we have providers who do practice alternative healing, energy therapy especially. That's one, I've done that myself even, and that is something, energy therapy is something that's really popular also in the community. And we also look for other ways to support cultures that may not adhere to a traditional sense. But either way, if it's coming from someone who looks like you, we believe that that makes a difference. Since 2020, when we started, we've had several events that include our Let's Talk mental health events, community advocates who are deeply committed to working with community, take time out. Everyone is not paid, with one exception, and I'll explain that. We take time out to volunteer our time and our services to come together and have conversations like these to encourage people to talk about issues that are affecting our everyday health. We don't get paid, except we pay our providers and we pay our moderators. King County has been wonderful. King County Community Wellbeing Program has been wonderful. Best Starts for Kids, King County, they have really helped us and supported us. So they have helped us with gift cards to pay our providers. Federal Way Black Collective has kicked in with a grant to help literally pay our providers, as well as Black Lives Matter, Seattle, King County. So far, we have been able to amass approximately $70,000. All of those funds go to pay Black and brown providers so that folks who don't have access to mental health because of mental health care, because of financial lack, we have you, and we pay our providers, and we're only growing. That's all that we're doing. So we're very grateful for those of you who are able to watch us and join us online, and then also for those of you who have taken time out to come and talk with us today. So our talk today, oh, and I apologize we're late. We go until 3:30, and then for those of us who want to take advantage of either online one-on-one mental health support with one of our licensed providers, Dr. Tanya, Dr. Jennifer are not our only licensed health providers that are helping us out today. You're able to either meet here. We have, our pastor has provided us a private room where anyone can have a one-on-one chat with one of these sisters who are here, or any of our other providers who show up at 3:30, or online. Our Michaela Wright, who is our program, our program project, help me, Michaela. Thank you. I thought it was that, but you were sitting next to your boss, Sarah Wilhelm. Michaela and Sarah are from King County, but Michaela and Sarah, man, I don't know what we would do without them. They actually literally help us to set up our online one-on-one mental health supports. And Michaela does our flyer work. I don't know what I would do without them. So I'm super very grateful for them as well. And I won't leave out Nori De La Pina. This is all King County. Best Starts for Kids, Community Wellbeing. They have been so supportive of school for the last 2 years. And Nori essentially does everything that Michaela doesn't do, and back and forth. We're really super grateful for our King County team helping us and look forward to keep working with them. So I want to start out our Let's Talk conversation literally with what is on Dr. Jennifer's heart, because Dr. Jennifer had topics that she wanted to talk about that were close to her heart and near to her. Yes, ma'am?
Thank you, Ms. Terry. For me, I know that there's a lot going on in the community right now. I think we were talking recently a lot about deaths and other unfortunate traumas happening, especially in the Central District. So it's just been really on my heart to talk about grief and working through that, whether you have experienced, death in your life personally, or experiencing grief through a connection, that you had with someone, or hearing a story, just how to process that and work through it, so that it doesn't stop you from, living your life, but you're able to work through it in healthy ways. So, yeah, grief was what was on my mind.
So what I wanted to ask you about in that line, we have suffered a lot of loss. Right here in Seattle area, we suffered quite a bit of loss over the last week or so, especially calling out a young man by the name of Devon Pickett. And for those of you who don't know, Devon Pickett was the postman. Thankfully, his business still lives on 23rd, strike that, on Martin Luther King and Union. But a lot of people knew Devon Pickett. Devon was a coach with CAYA. He coached young men to play football. He also was a young man who had suffered a lot of setbacks and obstacles he had to climb over, and then made this really successful business. Coming from a long line of Chappelles, who is a large black family in the Central area for a very long time. So a lot of people were touched across a broad spectrum. And I'm just wondering if grief, it's, a lot of folks were at home, and a lot of folks were isolated in their mourning for this young man. What does that do to you to grieve alone in that way?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because I think the process of grief isn't always straightforward. If you don't have, mental health support like therapy and other forms of healing, it can be hard to figure out how to do it in healthy ways. I think you can do it alone, and I think it is good to have that support around you, because a lot of times when you grieve in isolation, it can get you to a space, if you're not processing the grief in the right way, where you can fall into unhealthy habits. And I think that it could make it seem like your grief doesn't have any merit, or like you don't feel like there's a reason to grieve, because you're just doing it alone, right? You're not getting the feedback or the connection that you need to feel that support in the grief process. So I think it's not the healthiest form of grief if you don't try to get support, even if it's not from, again, like a licensed mental health counselor, but just being able to have support from other people around you, I think can be really effective. But I can talk more about how to grieve alone, to like not tap into unhealthy habits, but yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, I want to hear Dr. Tanya's thoughts on that same thing, and then also Silver's. But please, would you put a bookmark on how to grieve alone? Because so many people are left alone and they make that fatal decision to cause harm to themselves. And so I think it is a good idea to learn to grieve alone. And Dr. Tanya, you might pick up on that thought also. At the same time, you know, that you're talking about grief and isolation. If you would, please.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that Jennifer has shared. Like, I always say that we are better together, and we were created for the purpose of doing life together. We are a community. So even if you're not necessarily reaching out to a behavioral health provider or someone, reaching out maybe to your pastor or a friend, isolation leads also to more negative maybe thoughts and behavior. So if you have like a trusted person that you can share with, maybe just even to talk about the memories. And then there's another thing that I wanted to point out also, is that sometimes it doesn't have to be one or the other. Both things can be true. Maybe you do need some time alone, and that could be good. But if you find that you're starting to avoid, numb, suppress, those types of things, and that's probably when you need someone to be of a bit more moral support for you. So,
Silver, what do you think about that? The beauty of having you really as part of our discussion is because you don't have that technical background. You have a real experience, what folks might go through grieving or having to contend with a situation that makes you blue, just from a lay perspective. So what are your thoughts on that?
Thanks, Terry. I really think there is community in grieving as a process. So as an example, when Devon passed away, there was, I believe, Climate Pledge Arena was where his funeral was at, and there were so many community members that were able to show up to this space, that were invited to really be together during this loss, and also recognizing that he was important in the community. So I really think about that as an example of needing community and being with community to really understand and not move on, but move with on how do we protect each other so this kind of event doesn't happen again, because that's what it's really all about. We have so many people, prominent people that are important to the community, that it's not, we don't understand what they're going through, but we don't want them to be alone, and we don't need to be alone. So when you're able to be in community and move with each other, you get closer to hopefully preventing these tragedies from happening again. And that's what it kind of means to like be together when things get tough, but also be together when things are going okay. You don't want to be surviving through mental health, you want to be thriving through mental health.
Yeah. But Silver, I have another question for you though, and it has to do with, you and I have had conversations about our communities.
Can you speak it so they can hear on your mic?
Yes, ma'am. I take direction really well. Is that true? Is that clock right, Pastor? Is that clock right, Angela? It says 3:32. It's 2:32, approximately. Okay, thank you. Silver, you and I have had conversations before where our communities, our respective communities, our Black community all day, Central District, Native, Vietnamese community, but our communities together, we don't always reach out to people when we need a little bit of help. We're so similar in that way. Why do you think that's true?
I think part of it's just like, you know, there's, in a way, a hustle culture. So as an example of like, there's so many other things that externally go on in our lives, whether it's racism, whether it's trying to support your family even when finances are running tough, that it's like mental health's on the back burner. How can I take care of my mental health when I need to put food on the table? How can I take care of my mental health right now when we're in the middle of the pandemic and my small business is failing? That's happened to probably not only just people it's happened to people all over in POC community. When the pandemic was happening, small businesses were going through, what do I need to do to get my PPP loan? It's not, and keep providing for my family. It's not, I really need to go see a therapist. I don't have time right now. There's barriers, as we talked about, like with just even affording it. School is one of the few ways that is a way that is accessible to the BIPOC community, where people can get those mental health sessions and those therapy sessions that we really need. But unfortunately, I think it's like, it's not all over the country, as much as I wish it to be. We're really unique in that aspect. So it's not only just a community thing, there's also just other factors. So it's like, okay, I have therapy accessibility up in Seattle, but I have a cousin just down in Arizona, and that, like, having a therapist that is just even Asian American or Asian, that's not accessible to her. So there's like, I just think about all these trickling effects that really impact not just what is the priority right now, and the priority is to destigmatize accessing mental health, and also recognizing that there are ways to access it and also take care of your family. Those can go hand in hand.
Do you think that stigma in the form of shame has anything to do with it for Vietnamese community?
I think that, yeah, so I think that's part of it. And then there's also like, there's also different topics, you know, like when we get mental health therapy, what does that really mean for somebody? So if somebody's looking for therapy for OCD, autism, LGBTQ issues, we also have those subcategories of also just how can I get mental health, but also I need a second subcategory for this. So there's so many layers on what it means to just access mental health that it also gets overwhelming, and it becomes shameful of like, I need this, I can barely get it, and I don't want my family to know because I want them to see me thriving. I need to provide for my family, I need to be supportive for my family, and that's another whole thing in itself. The language accessibility too. So there's so many different things, whether you identify as Asian, POC, etc., like all that.
Thank you, Silver. One beautiful thing about South King Emotional Wellness League is that we do offer online mental health support. So we don't discriminate. You can set up an appointment. If you learn about us, we advertise on Facebook, and we also have, do we have Instagram? We don't have Instagram yet. We're getting there. But we advertise on Facebook primarily, and we tell everyone, we ask everyone to share our flyers. So that means if you are in Arizona and you happen upon our flyer, you could call in, you could set up an appointment through SKEWL, and you can talk with one of our licensed mental health care providers. And the most important thing is that it is confidential. So not only do you not have to pay for it, it also is confidential and anonymous. So our system is you sign up. If you sign up under a name, we're not going to ask you to provide identification. We're not going to take down notes from anything you've said. That can be really handy in more ways than one. But I wanted to ask my sisters also, Dr. Tanya and Dr. Jennifer, what do you think about? Do you think that there is stigma for our community, our Black community, in seeking a hand in dealing with a challenging situation like the loss of a loved one? And if there is stigma, why? Eventually, I want to ask how to get around that. I don't care, Dr. Tanya or Dr. Jennifer.
absolutely there's stigma within our community in regards to seeking mental health. I think it goes back many generations of, you don't tell what's going on in the house. What happens here in the house stays in this house. And we've kind of like perpetuated that. And then also there's I'm sorry, Silver, yes, I'm sorry, Silver.
You like me
Like
repeating
Silver
all.
said, like the overarching goal is just managing life on the day-to-day basis. So who has time to go see a therapist? Like, that's for someone that's crazy. They get labeled. They don't want that. They don't want to present as being weak or anything like that. So absolutely, stigma plays a huge role in why so many African American and Black and brown people don't get the treatment that they need. So having organizations like SKEWL that connects people with licensed mental health providers and other alternative healing is so important. And what I love is that we come basically to you, like we're in this beautiful sanctuary today. It's not about you trying to find us. We are here waiting and making things accessible, so.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tanya. Dr. Jennifer, the same question, and then also I'd like you to start the round on how do we get around the stigma and get to asking for help when we need it?
Yeah, I think along the lines of stigma, I think there's an issue with trust in the Black and brown community with the healthcare system in general. Due to how far back in history things have happened to us without our consent, it places a lot of POCs in this position where they don't feel comfortable sharing anything because they don't know what's going to be done with their information, or how they're going to be labeled and how that's going to travel. All these things are things that run through their mind because it's been happening to them or their parents or their grandparents. So that trauma with the healthcare system can make it really hard for them to feel comfortable to reach out to anybody in the healthcare system. I think that's why it's so important to have Black and brown providers so that people can just feel comfortable knowing that they're seeing somebody who looks like them, who hopefully has similar experiences and can help them traverse the system and not feel like something is being done to them, but they're going through it together. I mean, that's something I always tell my clients, that I'm doing this counseling journey with you. You're not doing this alone, so that they can feel like they can, just trust me and not feel like, this is a strange situation or something's gonna go wrong. So yeah, I like everyone else was saying, I'm just really thankful that I get to be part of a coalition that's doing that type of work, because I know how difficult it is to trust and not be sure if there's gonna be some type of label placed on you for going to therapy. But to remove that stigma, I think, with organizations like this, we're already putting out there that these are individuals that are in the field and they want to do the work, and that they look like you, and they have an end goal, which is, a goal to destigmatize mental health. That they want to actually work with you based on the things that you're actually dealing with. So knowing that, if you have financial issues or you have issues with childcare, like the things that happen to you in your community, that the people who are working in this coalition are trying to do that. So I think that's another thing that providers can work on, whether you're Black or brown or from another community, just knowing how to understand the experiences of the people that you're working with. is really, really important, because that cultural competency really helps other people feel comfortable in knowing that you, even if you're not in their shoes, you understand the shoes that they're walking in, and that also, helps build that trust. But I think as far as the individuals who are part of the community, there really just needs to be more honesty about the things that you're dealing with, and knowing that you're not alone. Like Ms. Tanya was saying before, I think a lot of times we've been told, keep everything in the household and keep everything hush-hush. And I think it's time to unlearn some of those things so we can know that we can count on each other in the community. There are people who are also going through similar circumstances who don't want to be alone. So let's have honest conversations. Let's come to events like this and talk about what's hurting us so we can get the help that we need.
Oh, thank you. Silver, what do you think about that? Just from folks like us who are like living it and not treating it. Trust, do you think that is one of the things about stigma, and how do we get around it from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's like when we keep quiet about mental health, we don't talk about it, and then it keeps on perpetuating until bad things happen. And grief, isolation, it perpetuates, it affects your daily life, it affects not only your mental health, but your physical health, your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your back issues at the age of 26. I'm not projecting that on anybody. Anyways. But what I think about, like what everybody was talking about when it comes to mental health and destigmatizing it, I think about a few things. As just a story is like the first time I ever heard somebody talk about mental health in my family who was above the age of 40, I told my uncle one time, I didn't feel like calling you on your birthday because an acquaintance had passed away and taken their life. And at that moment, he's like, wow, sorry to hear that. And he just like looked at his kids and he said, you see, if you ever feel sad like that, you gotta call your siblings or call your friends or call whoever. And I just stopped for a second. I was just like, man, he's like 40 something, almost 50. And he's a refugee from Vietnam. And there's also a different layer of like, having to learn the language in the US at a young age, and just able to make the words to say that to his kids and say it's okay to feel like that, and it's okay to reach out for help or have people reach back out to you and like support each other. Just even saying that to your family, and not just kids that you have, kids that you get, because we all get kids sometimes. Some people don't have kids, some people just get kids.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
and
exactly
that's totally
right.
valid. And even just saying those kinds of things already stops and breaks the cycle. Even you all being here, whether you're on Zoom or in person, that breaks the cycle of stigma to really open up conversations with your community, with your loved ones. And then also I think about too, we have so many people in this room. I'm surrounded by 2 lovely mental health providers. I know how much that costs.
That's right.
In tuition.
That's right.
And so if you're a family and you got people in your family or your own kids that you get that are interested in just pursuing that type of education, that's what breaks cycles too. You gotta support that, because these mental health providers, it's not easy. It is not easy to get into school. It's not easy to attend school when the mental health field is white dominated.
Come on.
I'm an MSW. I don't have the certification like y'all do, but attending a white school as an MSW and as just even thinking about mental health, that is emotionally hard on you all. I commend you all for doing that. And as your friends or community members, allies, you gotta support POC people doing that work. That's what also matters too.
That's just real talk. I have like 4 different things I want to talk about, and I just know the time is going to run out. But one of the things, to put a bookmark in there, is how do you become a mental health care provider? And so many of us are social workers. I just wanted to point out also that one of the beautiful things about school, so for me, the job that I work, I take in a lot of folks' own issues, and I have to deal with those myself. And I work with a community that tends to get the brunt of everything that is happening in our society every day. No money, food insecurity, job insecurity, Black and brown folks who have to deal with anti-Black and brown policy and laws every day. I mean, they get all of it, a marginalized community. On top of that, I have my own life. I remember a period of time when I was really going through it. And I'm literally telling you, if it had not been for my 3 children, 2 of them still living with me at home, and my 2 dogs, I would have taken my life. It literally was because I had something that I had to live for, and the consciousness that if I don't, what will happen to them? I would have gotten therapy, but again, because of my profession, if anyone found out about it, it could affect my livelihood and my ability to take care of my family. I'm a single mom. I have 2 Black boys, so that means that I really had the weight of the world on me. I am so grateful for the idea of school. By God, by faith, my babies, my dogs, and those individuals around me, I made it through. That's called grace, and it's called faith. But there are some people who don't come back from moments like that. During that time that I was dealing with that, 2 of my friends in the profession, they took their lives. One of them had 3 children, and their mom had passed away 5 years before. The oldest one of those babies was 13 years old. Those babies have been orphans now for the last 3 or 4 years. That also affected me. School provides anonymity and confidentiality, but I don't know very many other ways that you're able to do that. Folks can get access in limited circumstances to mental health care. So I appreciate school, and I'd like to know your thoughts on advocating for more institutions that allow for that confidentiality. I also, though, want to talk about the ways that mental health instability can manifest itself. And so just very briefly, I think that one of the key reasons that our young men and women, mostly young boys, are killing one another is because they themselves are having mental health challenges, grief, being bullied, having to deal with the stigmas that come along with being Black and brown in society. So I definitely would like to know, along with, how do we increase ways for folks to get it by being anonymous, but how are the ways that it manifests? And do you agree with me with regard to this gunfire that we're seeing from our babies in our communities? I know that's a lot. Whoever wants to take the first stab, please do.
So, thank you, Ms. Terry. That's a very good question. So in terms of the advocating, conversations like this, spaces like this, where you don't normally hear conversations about mental health in churches, A lot of people think that if you're a person of faith, then you should be able to just pray it away, or you're not praying hard enough, or your faith isn't strong enough. That is not true. You can have faith, you can pray, and you can still see a therapist. It does not have to be one or the other. Both of them can exist. One of the things that we talked about a little bit earlier was about how it manifests in the body in terms of like diabetes and heart disease and all these other physiological responses to stress, right? So it's not just to go to the doctor and get a checkup for those things, but you can also see a therapist or reach out just because, you know, hey, I just want to get a checkup. I want to make sure that I'm taking care of my mental health, because the more I invest in my mental, then my body is going to respond in kind. So coming from an area and a community such as our community where, you know, there's a prevalence for violence and things of that nature, other adverse childhood experiences, maybe you're in a home where it's just one parent, maybe your parent is a single parent and working, and then you're having to help with take care of your siblings or whatever the case may be. Those things manifest in the classroom. They manifest in terms of anger, and we know anger is not a primary emotion, so it's probably some sadness, some disappointment, some frustration, right? Some irritability as well that kids go through. I have a daughter, she's 13 years old, and I have created an environment where she's comfortable with having conversations about her mental health. And when she's not having a good day, I'm like, okay, it's okay for you to take a mental health break, take today off from school. I'll let your teachers know that you're at home, you're having a mental health day, and then you can return back to the classroom tomorrow. We, in terms of taking care of ourselves, we have to also look out for one another. So fostering an environment such as a church, maybe even just on your job where you can have these real conversations and not, and part of the whole destigmatizing it is just continuing to talk about it till it becomes the norm. And that's what I love about school, is because school is always keeping that conversation going. Every month, right, we're having some form of event, normally hybrid, and that's fine, where people can connect with providers. And even outside of our normal time, I am frequently receiving emails from Nori and Sarah and Michaela saying, hey, Tanya, do you have time in your schedule? I have a mom that want to connect a child, or I have a family, or this is going on in the community. Absolutely, I have time. That's a priority.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Tanya.
Yeah, there's like so much I could say, but I'm gonna because I used to be a school counselor. So when you talk about gun violence and bullying and all the things that are underneath what's happening externally, I've seen it myself. You know, I used to work in an elementary school, and you know, when you think about the things that happen to Black and brown boys especially, but also girls, and how they basically are trying to get them from school into prisons, in how they discipline them, in how they work with them in the school environment, and basically not allowing them to have an outlet. So you see so many behavioral issues, but then when I got the chance as a counselor to get them into my office, they were breaking down because there was stuff going on at home, like stuff that a child shouldn't have to go through. They shouldn't have to see, they shouldn't have to experience. And the only way they knew how to express that was through bad behavior. You know, as young as kindergarten, these kids were going through things that just are unimaginable. And again, because our community a lot of times carries this narrative that you don't talk about things. A lot of times their parents didn't have the tools to help them process it. So it's just this intergenerational trauma that's happening from one parent who didn't know how to deal with emotions to the kid who didn't know how to do it, and then on and on and on till we just continue this cycle of individuals in the community who are bottling things up or expressing it through anger or through substance abuse, all these negative behaviors. And it's just unfortunate because I think that if we start as young as possible, like Ms. Tanya said, like actually allowing your kids to talk about what they feel, like give them a space to say, like have a choice to talk about what's on their heart. And if they literally need a mental health day, give them that. As adults, when we have a job and we need PTO, we take time off, or you should if you don't. So if a child has that same thing where they have something going on and they just can't get through a school day, allow them that time off to do something else that is going to stimulate their mind and their body so that they can release whatever it is that they're, holding inside. But yeah, I think like you were saying with the gun violence and all the stuff that's going on, there needs to be outlets especially for young Black and brown kids to be able to express what's going on with them.
What you just said, Dr. Jennifer, about providing an outlet for our children to talk about their mental health. And that just reminds me also of what Silver said, because her uncle turned to his little children. And by talking to his little children and saying, listen, if you ever have this kind of a feeling or an issue, then you need to call somebody, call one of your friends. And that seems like that's a way, right, of getting your children ready for. There was an incident, a little boy, my heart is still broken for him, 14 years old, at Ingram High School, and he shot and killed a 17-year-old, and it was at the high school. And of course, my heart is broken for the mommy and the daddy. And rest really well, little boy, 17 years old. But the description in the newspaper of the 14-year-old prior to the shooting, his teacher was able to look at him. She said he just seemed really angry or in a rage. He was crying, he was upset. It just seems like if she knew something was wrong, the teacher did, but yet she wasn't able to intervene in a way to keep that from happening. I just wonder what must it be like, do you think, for a 14-year-old child to feel like they have to carry a gun to school, or for a 14-year-old child to feel like there is a gun and somebody is going to cause me harm? What does that do to somebody's mental health? What do you think about that?
I mean, I feel like for anyone who's constantly basically carrying around stress, which is what's going on with someone that young, that's not normal. Our bodies shouldn't be stressed all the time. There are moments where you'll go through stress and work through it, but to have high levels of stress can create anxiety, can create depression. Depression can get even deeper and create suicidal ideations or thoughts. It puts a stress on your body physically, so it makes your blood pressure go up, it makes your heart beat faster, it creates tension in certain parts of your body. And basically for a young person, it decreases their life over time if they're actually carrying that stress like throughout their lives. Because trauma does show that when it lives in your body, it does reduce your years of life. So it's sad because, you know, it's physically deteriorating that person and mentally at the same time, where it does manifest into these mental health issues that can be on, you know, a less higher severity, I guess you could say, but then it can be really severe into the point where, you know, a person may be walking around feeling this level of anxiety that makes them feel like they have to carry a gun. You know, that can create PTSD, some post-traumatic stress disorder, because, you know, they've experienced something either in their community or through other experiences where they feel like, oh, I have to be on alert all the time. And those are all mental health illnesses that, if not taken care of, they can definitely become worse over time and create certain thoughts that can get someone to be in a really, really dark place.
If anyone has any questions for our mental health care providers or community advocates, please don't hesitate to raise your hand and ask. Definitely your opportunity. Most of the time when we do our Let's Talk, we do it online and it's interactive. Folks join our online and they're able to enjoy the discussion, but also to contribute to the discussion and gain and learn more. As we grow at SKEWL, we're going to get better and better at making sure that we are able to provide that online interaction as well as being in person too. How do you think, Dr. Tanya, you know, I feel bad for the teacher. I feel like I know the teacher is also grieving because she described so vividly how this young 14-year-old was before the actual shooting. I feel like I know this teacher is thinking that 2 lives are lost and that there's a whole other spectrum of folks' lives that are horribly impacted. What do you do? How do you intervene when you know something is wrong? She saw he was suffering a mental crisis at the time, but you're not a licensed healthcare provider. You don't know. So how does a regular old person just intervene?
So I would encourage that person to reach out to that individual. If you think that someone is suicidal or could potentially be homicidal, then connecting them with someone that can help ensure that they are stable. But there are indicators that, you know, a person might be experiencing some form of mental health crisis. My advice, like I said, is just to connect them with those resources. But my mind is just kind of wondering, like, you know, Jennifer talked about PTSD, and for everyone that was in that school that day, they've experienced a form of trauma, right? That now they're on even a higher alert of hypervigilance, and to stay in that state is not healthy. So that's why organizations like SKEWL is so important with connecting teachers and parents to resources so that kids and adults can properly process through that experience and store those memories away in a way that's healthy, where it does not impact their sleep, their diet, and other areas of their daily lived experience. So by all means, if you suspect that someone is experiencing a mental health crisis, connect them to resources. Do not hesitate. It's better safe than sorry, and we can process through that other stuff later.
Thank you, Dr. Tanya. Oh, almost fell on my own foot. Go
No,
ahead.
I wanted to add a straightforward tip to that because sometimes I know from working in the school system, when you're a teacher, you don't have the opportunity to leave your classroom, or you try to go to the counselor and they are overwhelmed. I can go on about all the things that a counselor has to do in a school system that totally doesn't have to do with counseling, and they don't get to reach that child. But the crisis hotline number, the national crisis line number, is 988. So they just changed it recently, so it's just 3 numbers. So if you do have someone who has suicidal ideations, you just dial, or homicidal ideations, just dial 988, and you'll get somebody who comes on the crisis line and help you walk through how to get that person safe and secure, so that you can make sure that it's handled and you don't just leave and walk away and something unfortunate happen.
Yes, we do, and we also got lunch today.
Okay, can you please tell us what we have for lunch and also in our goodie bags?
So today we have for lunch today, we have a choice of either a chicken Vietnamese sandwich, and then we also have some turkey sandwiches and vegetarian options from Subway, as well as a cookie. I will be stealing a chocolate chip cookie today. And then in our gift bags, we also have provided, in partnership with Public Health, a journal that you're able to take, a pen that's also included, these little soaps that we want to also spread best hygiene and also self-care, so they're all scented really nicely. And then also some compact mirrors, so you can do your makeup and look at your pretty face on your free time.
So, I want to talk about the meaning of each one of those things, but I wanted to make sure that, Michaela, our email address is wellbeing, is that right? wellbeing@kingcounty.gov. There it is, everybody. wellbeing@kingcounty.gov. That email address gets us right straight to Michaela and Nori and Sarah. If you ever have any questions, if you want to talk to either Dr. Tanya or Dr. Jennifer or any other one of our licensed mental health care providers, then you can email to wellbeing@kingcounty.gov. If you want to help us by blessing us with your skill as a licensed mental health care provider, we welcome you, and you can please email to wellbeing@kingcounty.gov. When I'm not feeling good, my giving back to the community is so helpful to me. When I came this morning, I was blue. One thing that happened, my pastor just looked at me and said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I just anyway." But he just sat there and listened for a second. Sometimes it's just nice to just listen to somebody or watch somebody cry. And then my folks came, and y'all came. I feel so much better. So not only do you get a stipend, we're paying you your wage. Is that right? We're paying you your hourly wage, right, Dr. Tanya and Dr. Jennifer? As a provider, we definitely value our provider services, but on top of it, you'll heal yourself, is how I feel like. So don't forget that email address. Silver, why did we do journals?
So we wanted to do journals because we feel that's important for you to also document your journey in mental health and well-being. We want you to be thriving, and
We found that a journal is there to also let you be there for the tough times and the great times. I don't know for y'all, but for me, I kept my journal when I was going through my young days as a little bit struggling, and I look back on it and I say, okay, things are better now. And then there's also good times in there of like, those were some really good days.
Yeah.
And that's what we really want to promote at SKEWL, and to be for you to be there. We're there for your good times and your bad times. And then for the soap, like I said, we really wanted a really nice scent, and we also really want self-care. What does self-care look like? Taking care of your physical self, being able to relax. And then the mirrors on there for you to look at your beautiful face, because y'all are beautiful people.
Yeah.
What else do we have in there? We have it's a reusable bag, so we're also doing it for the environment. It's really
And
nice today.
inside the bag also is a sheet, right?
Yes.
What's on that?
What's
You
on
know what's on that sheet. Oh, it's, did I put you on the
we have-
spot?
We also have a sheet of resources available in the county, I believe, for the different mental health resources that we have. So you can also take a look at what's in that bag. And then also feel free to come up and ask any of us, like, if you have any needs too, as well as quite a few of us are in person today.
Yes, and if you are not able to be here in person today, you can get a bag at wellbeing@kingcounty.gov. We don't mind being harassed, and it has all that information. It's not really harassed. Speak for myself, right, Michaela? But but we want you to email us. We love for you to do that. What's the importance of self-care, Dr. Tanya and Dr. Jennifer? What's the importance of writing it down and also looking at yourself? What's the importance of that?
Yeah, journaling is really, I like to tell clients or people that I talk to, it really helps get stuff out of here and onto something. So a lot of times when we have thoughts, we really sit on them and think about them over and over, and that's what can create either anxiety or depression. But when you write it out, it's no longer sitting up here, it's somewhere else, so you know, I've written it down, close the journal, I'm done with that thought, and I've processed it. So that's what journaling really does. It helps you process your emotions. So even if you're not able to talk it out, you do have a way to get it out, and it's not just staying in here. And self-care, I mean, self-care is just basically knowing that you are somebody who is valuable and you have to care for who you are. So it's not a luxury, it's actually a requirement. You should be taking care of yourself. So that just looks like doing the things that make your body and your mind feel better, feel good, and you feel healthy. So, you know, if it's for one person taking a bubble bath, it could be another person reading a book that you really love, but just something that stimulates your mind and your body and makes you feel good, you know, as an individual.
And looking at yourself and looking at yourself.
Looking at yourself, reminding yourself how unique and wonderful you are. You know, that the way that you are made is just perfect.
Yes.
And really reminding yourself that every day you should be looking in the mirror every day and affirming yourself and letting yourself know that you're valuable. I think there's a lot of power in just being able to look at who you are and know that just the way that you are, you're enough. And I think that's the power of just looking in the mirror.
Thank you, Dr. Jennifer. Dr. Tanya, I want to know your thoughts on that, but I also want to know, like, okay, so I had to go out of town on business last week, and it was abrupt. I didn't expect it, but it wasn't all business because it was just a minute part. Oh my goodness. I went to Los Angeles for 3, did y'all know I went to Los Angeles? I was on the school meeting call from Los Angeles. I didn't want to brag about it. Listen, the weather was so warm. It was like 60 degrees. I ate. I spoiled myself. I slept everyone knows how, oh, I didn't even know I needed that space and time. I have a really bad habit with perfume. That's my self-care, but sometimes it's very expensive. So the two questions, should you do self-care just to do it? As well as, I want to know your thoughts on those three questions. And also, does it have to always be expensive? Like, then you don't have to feel guilty about spending money on self-care? So all that. Can you remember all that, Dr. Tanya? Okay.
So, absolutely, self-care should be a part of your daily practice. I always encourage my clients and the patients that I work with is that self-care should look like you taking care of yourself as if you were someone that you are responsible for taking care of. So, if that means that you need to just sit back and enjoy a cup of coffee outside on your patio, or if you, what are just some basic practical things that you do with the intent of rejuvenating yourself, that is self-care. It does not have to be costly at all. It could be just going on an afternoon walk, right? And just admiring the creations around you, right? Looking at the trees and maybe just even practicing some deep breathing, noticing the sensation of air going into your lungs and breathing that breath back out. I'm a person of faith, right? So I believe, like, you know, God breathed that breath into us and we're returning it back out. And the beauty that, you know, the word, what is the scripture that says that we were created in his image and his likeness? So just reminding yourself of that, speaking affirming words over yourself every single day, that's important. It does not mean.
What if you don't like yourself right now?
Okay. And if you are not liking yourself, what about gratitude? What are you thankful for, right? You know, you can feel sad and still yet be thankful. You don't have to wait until feeling subside. We were created to experience a wide array of emotions. So you don't have to wait for sadness or anger or whatever to go away to pursue your value or pursue a life that's meaningful.
So self-care should be, you should make yourself do self-care.
Absolutely, and feel no guilt about it.
And there's nothing wrong with, even if you don't like yourself, standing in the mirror and saying, I don't care, I still am beautiful.
That's right.
I still am smart. It still is gonna pass. This too shall pass.
Exactly.
There is joy in the morning.
Exactly, all things works together for the good.
Because you could talk yourself into being in a better day, in a better way.
Absolutely, and then you know what, and if you can't, you know what, today it may not be okay today, but tomorrow could be better.
And so hold on.
That's right.
Silver, how does a little brown girl like you end up becoming a social worker? And I'm going to ask the same question for Dr. Jennifer and Dr. Tanya. How can I do that as a little brown girl?
Thanks, Terry. So I really think about, you know, what do you want to see in your world to make it a better place? After I realized accounting would not make me feel like I was making the world a better place, I had to rethink my life and really say, you know, whether it's mental health and doing therapy, which I didn't go into as my MSW, or even just supporting nonprofits and small businesses that make the community a better place for BIPOC community, that's what you really want to think about in terms of going into social work, mental health care, or even just being a community member that wants to see your people thrive.
Amen.
That's what it really comes down to. In a way, I feel as though everybody has the opportunity to be an advocate for their community.
in ways, profession, volunteer, even just waking up in the morning and saying it will be another day, that you're turning the stigma around. When I think about this, when I said something to my friend who was going through a really tough time, and I asked them, what can you do in 30 days? And they were listing everything that they couldn't do because XYZ, family, barriers, etc. And I was like, you're telling me what you can't do.
Come on.
What can you do in 30 days? And it is okay to just say, I can go to bed and wake up and know I have tomorrow.
Come on.
And I will live my life to the best I can. And even in doing that, I see them giving back to their community in arts and theater now a couple years down the line. And that's what they're doing in their best interest, to really preserve community and destigmatize that brown and black folks can't experience joy. They can experience joy in the arts, they can experience joy in exercise, sports, they can experience joy in advocacy, things like that.
Oh my goodness, thank you. And the most I took away from what you said is focus on what you can do as opposed to what you cannot do. And that's what Dr. Tanya said. What are you grateful for? You can always find that lining. How do I become a licensed mental health therapist as a little brown girl, Dr. Tanya and Dr. Jennifer?
So it varies based on state. I'm not originally from the state of Washington. I did my education and training in Virginia. Pursuing a bachelor's degree, master's degree, getting those clinical hours from an accredited school or university, and then, what was I gonna say? So basically starting there, right? But also one of the things that I love about Washington, though, is that their hours aren't as rigorous as some other states in terms of the practicum hours or internship hours. And then there's a test that you have to take in order to be fully licensed as a provider. So just studying and setting your sight on that goal and moving your life in a direction that you want to go.
And Dr. Jennifer?
Yeah, I think I'll take it back with my explanation to just the household and how it's set up for that individual. And I think that it's important as we break the stigma of talking about mental health that even in households, you need to encourage your Black or brown child to pursue mental health careers, right? So helping them understand that it's totally okay to go into a field where you are, impacting people, especially people who look like you. So parents have to create a space for children to know that they can be whatever they want to be, whatever their gift is telling them that they need to tap into, let that child tap into that gift. That's where they're gonna be more fulfilled. That's where they're gonna touch more people if they're actually doing the things that they love to do. I mean, when I think about myself, like, I've just always been a super empathetic person. Like, I've always been like the person that people would come to for advice, and I just knew from a very young age that I wanted to help people. And as I got to, it was high school when I took my first psychology class, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely doing this. And I also had parents that encouraged me. I am a child of immigrants, and a lot of times they tend to want you to do specific careers, but my parents were actually different in that way. They were just like, do whatever you want to do, as long as you go to college. They were definitely wanting me to go to college, but they didn't put me in a box. They wanted me to pursue what I wanted to pursue because they just wanted me to be happy and successful and, you know, do more than they had the opportunity to do. But for them, it was about, you know, supporting me in the things that made sense for me. So I think that's really, really important, especially in Black and brown households, to be able to encourage your child to follow their gift so that they can do what they want to do. And hopefully, you know, if it is in mental health, like, we can get more providers in the field.
If you are a student and you are working on your social work degree or your other mental health therapy degree, our licensed mental health therapy providers also can double as supervisors, am I right, to help you get your hours. Ms. Jennifer cannot. Dr. Tanya? No. Okay. But can you say that louder, Dr. Tanya? That we can, and can you explain what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so you will require supervision, and so we can connect you with people who can provide you with those clinical hours of supervision.
And so you can actually help us at school and be supervised.
Correct.
That is possible to happen.
Correct.
So, and then you can get your clinical hours
Yes,
that you have to graduate.
exactly.
Did
Well,
I say that good enough?
Yeah, to get those hours that you'll need it in order to test for the exam, yes.
I remember when I was a little girl, I got kicked out of school. I'll tell you right now, I'm a lawyer, and my mouth is what got me kicked out of school. But it was so late in the day that I was like, I'm not ever going to be able to go to college. I won't be able to go to law school. My father, William Rogers, rest in peace, my daddy said to me, Terry, you can get your GED and you can go to college and you can graduate, Terry. I didn't really believe him, but in fact, it was true. Like most of the stuff my parents told me I wasn't listening to at the time they told me, but it stuck in my head. Talk to your babies, parents, because they be listening. They just don't know they're listening. So if you want to go to school and become a mental health care provider and you feel like you don't have the background education to do it, that's a story. It's not true. Because if I could go to law school and become an attorney and help our community in that way, y'all can do the same thing or become what I think is even more important, licensed mental health care providers. And if you are not fortunate in the way that I was, I believe we're all fortunate, but it just manifests in different ways. God gave me that mommy and that daddy. And also to Dr. Jennifer also. But sometimes you don't have that. Treat yourself, right? Encourage yourself. Stand in the mirror and affirm what you can do and what you are able to do. We need you. You never know who's looking at you for inspiration or encouragement or support. Silver, thank you. I know I bullied you up on the table, but now you see how come I needed you, right? Thank you for contributing to our discussion, Dr. Tanya and Dr. Jennifer. It's 3:30 and now we get to do one-on-one mental health care support sessions, right, Michaela? And we get to say goodbye. Please look out for us on our Facebook page and come to our next Let's Talk conversation, because I promise you it will be just as enriching and just as good. God bless you and thank you so much for showing up.